Adidas just released their new Predator, the Adidas Predator 24 Elite. And honestly, I think it's the best Pred-like Predator we've gotten since the early 2000s. I haven't seen a boot this heavily marketed since the 2014 World Cup when Nike dropped their World Cup pack. They had the Magista Ober 1, the Superfly 4, the Hypervenom 1. It was a crazy time to be alive if you're a boot head, and all the advertisements they had, all the players they had wearing the boots, it was just unmatched. And honestly, Adidas hasn't quite done that, but they've mimicked it in a way that I think is pretty impressive, and I can see why they've kind of put all their eggs in one basket and kind of just pushed this boot out. I think that this is Adidas's new flagship boot. I think it was the X in the past, but with Messi's career winding down, I think it was a good time for them to kind of start pushing a new model. You know, the F50 is long gone. We may be getting it back, spoiler, but I think that this boot is great, and especially with the tongue, it looks like a classic Predator, and it does not get much better than that. Now, I consider myself a boot head at heart, if you can tell by all the boots I have around me and all the reviews I've done, but I will tell you that I don't know much about the older Predators, and the new Predator 24 Elite Plus, which has the tongue, I don't have the tongue version, I just have the regular laced version, it really does look like the older Predators. What has happened is this boot has brought back a lot of nostalgia for a lot of footballers, and has even brought younger players into at least appreciating the older style boot. Now, the problem that this boot has brought, and I'm only going to spend a few seconds on this because I restarted the video after ranting for 4 or 5 minutes, is the damage that resellers are doing in the market. And it's going to be pretty hard for you to get a pair with the tongue if you're not Johnny on the spot when they drop on the websites. I've seen them go for $350, $400, and that's just for the whiteout colorway or even just the original launch colorway. The 30th anniversary pair has gone for upwards of $1,000, and I've even seen $1,200 sales on eBay. It's insane. So just know, if you want a pair with the tongue, which is not this model, this is just the lace model, you've got to be Johnny on the spot to get them when they drop on the websites. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay an extra $100 to $200, and nobody wants to do that. But that's enough of me ranting. I'm sure you want me to get into the review. You're probably curious how this boot performed, all the tech specs, everything like that. So we're going to get right into it. This is the box for the Predator 24 Elite, which is the lace version. The Plus version is the one with the fold-over tongue. And as you can see, it's the blackout box for the blackout pair. Now, today is February 5th. The blackout pair actually releases on February 6th, which is tomorrow. I won't tell you where I got my pair from, but what I will tell you is they're not fake. I just have to keep my sources close to my chest. Can't let everybody know, or otherwise I won't be able to get them. Now, the box is nothing special, but what is interesting is it actually has a drawstring bag. We haven't seen the drawstring bags in Adidas Point 1 models since I want to say the X16.1. Only the Plus models that Adidas has released over the last 6 or 7 years have actually come with a bag. What's also nice is there's no more drawer style boxes. From what I can tell, I've had a few pairs of the tongue boots in hand that I've sent out to pros, and it's just a normal box. That makes it a lot easier for guys like me who do tons of packaging and don't have to deal with these big bulky boxes anymore. I felt the presentation is cool, but just from a practical sense, it doesn't make sense to me, and I'm glad they're gone. But that's enough about the box. Let's get into the boots. This sole plate is called the Control Frame 2.0, and after wearing this FG sole plate on turf, I can tell you it's not meant for turf. Who knew? Now, does that mean you can't wear FG boots on turf? No, and it's a huge thing that everybody always hates me for doing, but these studs are a little long on the Predator 24 Elite. I would not recommend you wear them on turf. I don't think it's dangerous, but you could definitely feel sometimes that the studs would dig a little deeper, especially if you're on a shorter turf, and sometimes your stud would get snagged here or there. Now, I personally didn't feel like I was in danger, but at times it was a little uncomfortable. That being said, a grievance I do have with this sole plate is it's reinforced in 2 different areas. You have a reinforced spot here on the medial side of the toe box, so these top 2 studs here, and I'll get you better visuals so you won't have to look at me pointing at this. The other reinforced spot is on the lateral side. It starts at the bottom stud in the forefoot, goes all the way down to the lateral 2 studs on the heel. Now, I didn't personally experience any issues with this, but what it does bring to my attention is the more stuff you add to a sole plate, the easier it is it's going to break. And what I mean by this is the more layers you do, whether it's a 2-piece sole plate, you know, reinforcements, whatever, it just doesn't make sense to me. If you're gonna make a reinforced sole plate, just make the material, like the nylon that they use, or the plastic or composite or whatever it is you're making, just make it stronger. Don't add all this other stuff. Don't add carbon fiber inserts and everything. No, just make one solid sole plate and make the material stronger. Otherwise, it's gonna rip, it's gonna break, and it's just not gonna be fun for anybody who actually has to purchase them. And I can't wait for it to thaw out in Michigan here because I wanna try these triangular shaped studs. They're not quite conical, but they're not really aggressive either. They're also not quite neutral. It's some weird spot, but I think these are gonna be better than the TriStar studs that were on the Phantom GX1. They were way too aggressive and I just did not like those, so definitely curious for that. So overall, I wouldn't recommend these FG boots for turf, but if you have to, you'll be okay. Moving on to the upper is made up of the Hybrid Touch 2.0 system, and I believe it is carried over from the original Hybrid Touch on the Predator Accuracy and the Hybrid Touch they've been using for the last several years. Now, when putting these on your feet and lacing them up for the first time, it feels weird, at least it felt weird for me, and it was a glove-like sensation, and it felt like the upper was a couple millimeters thick. At first I thought this was going to be a bad thing, but after I started kicking a ball around, dribbling, passing, taking a couple shots, it made it pretty clear to me that this upper is actually fantastic. And it really reminds me a lot of the Predator Accuracy, only in the aspect of how thick the upper was and how clean it felt striking a ball. With the Predator Accuracy Plus, I don't think I've ever hit a ball more clean in my entire life, and while I didn't hit the craziest shots with this boot, I still think it felt very similar, and that was one of the only things I actually really liked from the Predator Accuracy, so I'm glad that carried over and nothing else. I've seen a few guys who do boot reviews saying that this upper softens up after a few uses, and I won't say it softens up, it still feels the same pretty much throughout the entire time you wear it over the span of several weeks. But what I will say is it definitely molds to your feet, and I think that is something that is great because personally, you want a pair of boots molded to your feet because it fits better, it's more comfortable, blah, 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 you get the idea. It also has the rubber fins like any other true Predator does, and they're called the Strike Skin rubber elements. As I stated earlier, I don't know a lot about the older Predators, I just never grew up wearing them, so I never really grew fond of them. However, what I will say is, the new Predator 24 Elite reminds me of the Predator Precision. Now, this is obviously not the original Predator Precision, it's the remake Adidas did last year, but the rubber elements are very, very similar. I would just say these are maybe a little bit softer on the remake, and these are actually on our website, so if you're interested in them, go check them out. My grievance with the rubber elements is, why are there not more? I like that they're on the medial or inside of the boot, but can I also get them on the lateral or outside of the boot? I just want more of the rubber striking elements if we're gonna get them. And I know the reason for this may be, hey, we're Adidas, we want people to see those 3 stripes, but also on the Predator Precision, it wraps all the way around the boot. You have the rubber striking elements all the way around, and it even goes in between the 3 stripes. So if we got that on the Predator 24 Elite, I think that would be great, and I think it would perform better. Now, I don't think the rubber elements do a whole lot in terms of manipulating the ball. However, I wasn't really trying to take a lot of free kicks, really whip a ball in or anything like that. So you'll probably have to figure that out for yourself, but I will say that GripKnit does feel like it does a better job at gripping the ball overall than these rubber elements do. The tongue is also back, and I don't mean the fold over tongue, I just mean the normal tongue. We haven't had a tongue on a pair of Predators since 2014 with the Predator Instinct. I feel like every single boot today is a one-piece upper, so it's nice to have the actual tongue back. It's kind of got a cool little U or V shape, and I think that's supposed to help with tongue slippage, even though personally I still had tongue slippage, which if you have wide feet, you're just gonna have to suffer with. But I do think it just is overall more comfortable than a one-piece upper. I feel like it allows you to get the laces on a bit tighter, and yeah, I'm just glad it's back. For the size and fit, I went with a 9 US, and it's something I just have struggled with Adidas is, am I an 8.5, am I a 9? To play it safe, I always go with a 9 first. And there was a little bit of room in the toe, I would say a quarter to a half size at most, but not enough to where I felt it affected my playing or I felt like my toes were dragging, which is huge for me. I need to feel like my boots are very, very tight. And the only problem with if I wanted to go down to an 8.5 is I just don't feel like they would have been wide enough. The width on these overall is good. Having my very wide feet, I didn't have any issues or pains in terms of the size of the boots hurting my feet, or my feet feeling like there's just not enough room in the toe box or the kind of whole entire upper top area here. But it was good. I will say the sizing does feel better than the Predator Accuracy. I really struggled between an 8.5 and a 9. With these, wearing the 9, it was pretty comfortable. So if I'm to suggest a size that you should get, it would be whatever your normal Adidas size is. So a 9 in the Copa, a 9 in the X, a 9 in the Predator Accuracy. Get the 9, or whatever the size matches up, get that size. The Hybrid Touch 2.0 upper really provides a nice foot to ball connection, and I think adds to the comfortability a lot. It does have a nice soft foam insert around the back of the heel and Achilles area, which is always great. The heel cup is solid-ish. It's a little bit more flexible than I'd like, but it gets the job done for what a heel cup's supposed to do. And even though there's a little bit of sizing in the front there, that was a bit of an issue, it still felt like the boot fit great, and I didn't really have any issues or pains. And that's nice from a pair of boots. The only real pain is from the arch, and that's really just from me wearing so many different models of boots. So no real pain, comfortability, pretty high. Lockdown is where I would say this boot has a little bit of issues with the heel cup here. I've seen a lot of other guys who do reviews say it doesn't hold your foot in well. That's not really where I had my issue, and I don't know if that's because my wide feet just lock my foot in more down lower in the boot or what, but the biggest problem I would say is after you've worn the boot for an hour, hour and a half, and yes, this is gross, but when your feet are sweaty like mine really get, that's when I started to feel my entire foot slipping in the boot a little bit. Now, the reason behind that could be I'm wearing this little bit longer FG sole plate on a shorter than I normally like AG pitch. And basically what happens is when you don't have as much traction, but your studs are long, you're gonna kind of turn and then your foot's kind of gonna roll a little bit more. And that's pretty much what happened to me, but nothing too severe. At the end of the day, your feet aren't gonna slip out of these. Here's where the biggest issue lies, and that is gonna be durability. Now, there is no real issue with sole separation on the toe box or the kind of entire upper area of the sole plate where the upper meets, but back here when you get to the heel cup and the heel counter, it's a mess. It literally peels right off the sole plate. It reminds me of the old Adi Zero Primes or the 2010 50s for those of you who aren't familiar with that. And once they get a little bit older, they just kind of peel away from this high up heel counter area or heel sole plate area, whatever you want to call it. And that's exactly what these have done, except I've worn these 6 times total. 6 times total. I looked at them and I said, hey, I wonder if they'll peel away. Pushed on it with very little effort and completely ripped off on one side. Now, this is on the right boot. The left boot doesn't have it at all. I'm just pointing down there because it's over there, but it's the same issue I keep complaining and ranting about every video, and it's these top tier brands just don't hold together. What is the deal? This is your flagship boot. This is the boot that you've been advertising like crazy. They made a van and were selling these for $24 or something like that in the streets of London. Like, why are these ripping so soon? This is a $260 pair of boots, and they're ripping like they're from Alibaba or they're from Temu or something like that. What are we doing, Adidas? Can we fix this? Can we do something about this? Yes, I can easily fix this with Shoe Goo. You could easily fix it. It's not hard to fix boots, usually. But we shouldn't have to do that when we're paying $260 for a pair of boots in the first week we wear them. This should be stuff we're doing a year from now, 7 months from now, when we've worn this boot, scored goals that we have memories in, that we want to keep these boots around. Like so many of us keep those tattered pairs, not doing repairs on these in the first week. So that's my rant for these, but durability on these is crap, and honestly, I hope this isn't with every pair of boots they have. Otherwise, Adidas is going to be in some serious trouble. And that leads us to my final rating on these boots, which is an 8.8 out of 10. I'm excited to try the laceless pair. I'm excited to try the plus pair with the fold over tongue, and wearing the elite version or just the normal laced pair was an overall pretty good experience. So not bad, 8.8 out of 10, B plus.